A little orphan boy stumbled on a biker tied to the tracks. His rescue triggered an ancient, supernatural debt and a terrifying curse. To save him, a motorcycle club would summon an army of 6,000 engines in a thunderous ritual unlike anything the world had ever seen. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The old railway tracks on the edge of town were rusty and forgotten. They ran through a field of tall weeds. This was where 10-year-old Leo went to be alone. Leo was an orphan. He lived at St. Agnes' home. He was also mute. He hadn't spoken a word since the car accident that took his parents. The world was a silent movie for him, full of pictures but no sound. Tonight, he was out past curfew, chasing a stray cat. The cat led him deep into the weedy field near the tracks. That's when he saw the man. The man was huge. He was tied to the railroad tracks with thick, rough ropes. He wasn't moving. He wore a leather vest covered in patches. One patch said Sergeant AT Arms. Another had a snake wrapped around a sword. This was Marcus, the most feared enforcer of the Iron Serpent's MC. His face was bruised. Strange symbols were painted on his forehead in what looked like ash. Around him, in a circle on the ground, were black candles that had burned out. This wasn't a normal beating. This was a ritual. Leo froze, scared, but the man's eyes opened. They were a fierce, clear blue, full of pain and a furious will to live. He saw Leo. He couldn't speak. A dirty rag was stuffed in his mouth, but his eyes pleaded. Leo knew about being trapped. He knew about silence. He didn't think. He ran over. The ropes were tight, knotted in complex ways. Leo's small fingers worked at them. He found a sharp piece of broken glass nearby and sawed at the thick cords. It took a long time. His hands bled. Finally, the last rope snapped. Marcus pulled the rag from his mouth and sat up, gasping, "Kid, you gotta run, they'll be back." But it was too late. A cold wind blew out of nowhere. The ashes forming the symbols on the ground swirled. A voice seemed to whisper on the wind, full of hate. "The debt is transferred," the listener hears. A wave of icy pressure slammed into Leo. He felt a sudden, sharp pain in his head, like a door being forced open. Then nothing. The wind died. The whispers stopped. Marcus stumbled to his feet, staring at the boy. Leo looked fine, just scared. But Marcus knew about the cult that had taken him, the Silent Brethren. They didn't just kill, they cursed. They put a whisper on you, a psychic link that made you hear the violent thoughts of men around you, driving you mad. They had meant it for him to punish the serpents. The ritual had been interrupted. The curse had to go somewhere. It went into the boy. "Kid, can you hear me?" Marcus asked. Leo nodded. He pointed to his ears, then his mouth, shaking his head. "You can't talk, okay, can you? Hear other things now, things inside your head, bad thoughts that aren't yours." Leo's eyes went wide. He gave a tiny, terrified nod. He could hear them, a low, angry mumble in the back of his mind. It felt like distant shouting. Marcus swore, a debt, a life debt. The code was absolute. This kid, this mute orphan, had taken a curse meant for him. He couldn't leave him. "Come with me," Marcus said, his voice rough but not unkind. "You're not safe." He put Leo on the back of his motorcycle, which was hidden nearby. They rode to the Iron Serpent's compound. It was a fortress of garages and barracks. Men with hard faces stared as Marcus walked in, holding the hand of a small, silent boy. Marcus went straight to James, the club president, in the chapel. He told him everything: the ambush by the Silent Brethren, the ritual, the curse, the boy. James looked at Leo, who was shrinking under his gaze. "He hears the thoughts. He hears the violence," Marcus said. "The anger. In a place like this," he gestured around the clubhouse, full of dangerous men, their minds not always peaceful places. Leo flinched, clamping his hands over his ears. The murmurs in his head grew louder here, more distinct. "Wanna smash his face? Where's my money? Hate that guy." It was a storm of ugly, angry snippets. James saw the boy's pain. The serpent's code was clear. A debt of flesh was paid in flesh. A debt of spirit. The curse is ours now. So is the boy. He stays. We protect him. We find a way to fix this. Leo was given a cot in Marcus's room. The club's women, led by a tough nurse named Stella, cleaned his hands and got him clean clothes. They tried to be gentle, but their thoughts sometimes slipped through. Stella thought, poor little mite, so skinny, and Leo heard the caring part, but also her worry about the club's new trouble. Marcus became Leo's shadow. He taught him sign language basics so he could communicate. This means hungry, this means scared, this means too loud in here. He made a sign of covering his ears. Leo learned fast. The first funny moment came when Paul, the biggest serpent, was trying to fix a toaster. Paul's thoughts were a loud, frustrated stream, stupid piece of, why won't you just pop? Leo, watching, started to giggle silently, his shoulders shaking. Paul looked up, confused, then grinned. What, kid? You think my toaster fight is funny? He messed up Leo's hair. But the nights were bad. In the quiet of the compound, the whispers grew. Leo would wake up crying, hands pressed to his ears, hearing the dark dreams of the men around him. Marcus started sleeping on the floor next to his cot. When the whispers came, Marcus would turn on a small radio to static, or talk out loud about meaningless things, motorcycle parts, the weather, to give Leo a real voice to focus on. The club found the cult. The silent brethren were holed up in an old warehouse. The serpents went in, not for a brawl, but for information. They captured one of the brethren. Marcus questioned him. The whisper curse, how do you break it? Marcus growled. The cultist laughed. You don't. It feeds on violent intention. You are violent men, you are his poison, he will go mad. It is poetic. There had to be a way, James researched. He found an old, half-crazy former member who knew about the brethren's magic. The curse is sound, the old man wheezed. Psychic sound, it can be drowned out, but not by a little noise. It needs a wall of sound, pure, overwhelming intention, not violent but unified, a collective roar. An idea was born, a crazy, massive idea. The Iron Serpents sent out a call, on the CB radios, on encrypted channels, to every friendly club, every ally, every independent rider who owed them a favor. The message was simple: a brother owes a debt. A child carries the weight. We ride to break a curse. We need thunder. The response was incredible. Clubs from across the state pledged to come. The Ravens, the Steel Horsemen, the Diablos, not for a fight, for a ride. The day arrived. Leo was scared. The whispers were constant now, a raging river in his mind. Marcus dressed him in a small, custom-made leather jacket. On the back it said, "Little Brother," in patches. They led him outside the compound. Leo's breath caught. The road was filled with motorcycles. Thousands of them, rows and rows as far as he could see, men and women in cuts of every color. 6,000 bikers. They were not revving, they were silent, waiting. James walked Leo to the front. He knelt. Leo, these people are here for you. They're going to make noise, a lot of noise. It might scare you, but it's good noise. It's to help. You hold on to Marcus, okay? You look straight ahead. You think about the cat you chased, or Stella's cookies, or Paul's stupid toaster. You don't listen to the bad whispers. You listen to this. He stood and nodded. Marcus got on his bike, pulling Leo on behind him, securing him tight. He looked over his shoulder. Ready, buddy? Leo, eyes wide, nodded. He wrapped his arms around Marcus's waist and buried his face in the leather cut. James raised a fist. 6,000 engines turned over. The sound was a single, mighty cough. Then he dropped his fist, and the world exploded. 6,000 throttles were opened at once. The roar was not just sound, it was a physical force. It vibrated the ground, the air, Leo's very bones. It was a solid wall of pure, roaring power. The curse whispers in Leo's mind screamed in protest, trying to push through, kill, hurt, rage. But they were tiny, pathetic squeaks against the monumental tidal wave of engine thunder. The roar was not angry, it was focused, it was unified, it was a purpose: protect the boy, break the curse. The massive parade began to roll, a river of chrome and steel and deafening sound moving down the highway. Leo held on tight. He felt the vibration in his chest, in his teeth. He peeked out. He saw rows of riders, their faces set not in anger, but in determination. He saw women riding their own bikes, smiling at him. He saw a giant banner that read, "For Leo." The psychic whispers frayed, shattered, and then were gone, washed away in the endless, roaring river of sound. The ride lasted for an hour. When the bikes finally, slowly, one by one, shut off, the silence that followed was deep and clean. Leo lifted his head. The storm in his mind was quiet. For the first time in weeks, he heard only his own thoughts. Tears streamed down his face. He tapped Marcus's shoulder. Marcus helped him off the bike. Leo looked up at the sea of bikers who were now dismounting. They all looked at him. He took a deep breath. He did the only thing he could think of. He brought his small fist to his heart, the sign Marcus had taught him for thank you and brother. 6,000 bikers, as one, returned the salute, a silent, powerful moment of respect. The curse was broken, the debt was paid. But Leo was home now. The serpents voted. He was family. Marcus became his legal guardian. Leo got a room at the compound next to Marcus. He went to a special school during the day. In the evenings, he learned mechanics from Paul, who thought very loudly about carburetors, which was fine, and medicine from Stella, who thought about bandages and soup. He was still mute, but he wasn't silent. He had a family that spoke for him, with words, with signs, and with the occasional earth-shaking roar when it was needed. Life at the Iron Serpent's compound became Leo's new normal, a vibrant, noisy, and fiercely protective world. The psychic whispers were gone, but a faint echo of his gift remained. He couldn't hear clear thoughts anymore, but he could sometimes sense strong emotions, flashes of anger, spikes of fear, warm glows of loyalty, like catching a scent on the wind. It was manageable, and Marcus taught him to see it as a tool, not a curse. Leo grew, filling out from a scrawny boy into a sturdy 12-year-old. His silence became a strength. He observed everything. He learned sign language fluently, and the club learned it with him, their rough hands making clumsy but heartfelt signs for coffee, wrench, and watch your back. Paul, in particular, became his devoted uncle. His loud, simple thoughts about engines and food a comforting, uncomplicated presence. The chemistry in the compound wasn't just about brotherhood. Marcus had found something with Stella, the club's nurse. It was a slow, steady burn. She'd patch up his knuckles after a run-in with troublemakers, her touch lingering. He'd bring her a coffee exactly how she liked it. Their quiet, understanding relationship gave Leo a model of something stable and good. But the silent brethren had not forgotten. Their ritual had been ruined, their curse broken by a spectacle of defiant noise. They saw it as a humiliation. They began a subtle war, not of direct attacks, but of psychological terror aimed at the serpent's weakest link, their civilian connections. A serpent's sister would receive creepy, silent phone calls. A bar owned by the club would have its locks filled with glue. It was harassment, meant to fray nerves and provoke a rash, violent response that would bring police attention. The club council, led by James and Marcus, decided to fight smart. "We don't give them the brawl they want," James stated. "We find their money, we cut it off." This was where Leo's muted gift became an unexpected asset. James started taking Leo to meetings with legitimate business partners and carefully to negotiations with shady associates. Leo would sit quietly, drawing in a notebook. Afterward, in the privacy of James's office, they would debrief. "The man from the city permits office," James would say. "What did you sense?" Leo would sign, nervous, "Not about us." Guilty, he'd point to a doodle he made of a wallet. James would have their tech guy, Daniel, dig deeper. They'd find the man was taking bribes from a shell company linked to the Brethren. They'd use that information not for blackmail, but to turn him into an informant. Similarly, during a tense sit-down with a trucking company that was suddenly refusing the Serpent's cargo, Leo sensed the manager's fear was directed not at them, but behind him. Leo signed, "He is looking over his shoulder." This tipped off Marcus that the manager was being coerced. They offered protection and gained a loyal ally instead of an enemy. Leo became the club's secret weapon, their canary in the coal mine for bad faith. He wasn't a psychic. He was an incredibly sensitive, emotional barometer. The men protected this secret fiercely. To the outside world, he was just Marcus's quiet, adopted son. The Brethren grew frustrated. Their harassment wasn't working. They decided to target the source of their frustration directly. They learned about Leo's school. They sent a man to watch him, to study his routine, to find a moment to snatch him. One afternoon, The prospect tasked with picking Leo up from school had a flat tire. Leo waited outside the gate, as instructed. A van with tinted windows pulled up. The side door slid open. A man with cold eyes reached for him. Leo felt the violent intent before he saw the hand, a sickening wave of cold malice. He jumped back, but the man was fast. Just then, a car horn blared. It was Stella, in her beat-up sedan, coming back from a supply run for the clinic. She saw the van, saw the man grabbing for Leo. Without hesitation, she slammed her car into the side of the van, not hard enough to hurt Leo, but hard enough to crumple the door and send the kidnapper stumbling. She leaped out, a petite woman in nurse's scrubs, and stood between Leo and the man, holding a heavy tire iron she kept under her seat. "You touch him, and you'll need more medical care than I'm willing to give," she snarled. The kidnapper, shocked by the ferocity of this small woman, scrambled back into the damaged van and sped away. Stella dropped the tire iron, her hands shaking, and pulled Leo into a fierce hug. He was trembling, but he signed against her shoulder over and over, "Thank you, thank you." When Marcus heard, his rage was a cold, terrifying thing, but Stella calmed him. "He's safe. They've shown their hand, now we finish it." The club mobilized. Using the license plate Stella had memorized, Daniel tracked the van to a rental agency, then to a credit card, then to a warehouse district on the city's industrial fringe. The Brethren had set up a new sanctum. This time, the Serpents didn't go for a siege. They went for a statement. They didn't just want to chase the Brethren away, they wanted to erase their presence. On a moonless night, every Serpent who could ride gathered at the compound. Not 6,000 this time, but 200 of their hardest, most loyal members. Leo was safe with Stella at the compound, under heavy guard. Marcus addressed them. "They touched our family, they threatened our son. We don't just break their toys, we take their playground." The convoy rolled out, a river of silent iron. They surrounded the Brethren's warehouse, but they didn't storm it. They used tools, not guns. They used Molotov cocktails filled not with gasoline, but with thick, stinking pig's blood and salt, an old ritual insult. They hurled them through the windows. Then they unleashed the noise. Air horns, pipes banging on dumpsters, every motorcycle engine revving in a discordant, deafening cacophony. It was chaos, not violence. It was psychological warfare, turning the Brethren's own tools against them. The cult members, believers in ritual and silence, stumbled out of the defiled warehouse, gagging at the smell, clutching their ears against the hellish noise, utterly broken and demoralized. They were met not by bikers with chains, but by a wall of leather and contempt. James spoke only a few words. "Leave this city, never whisper our name again, or next time we won't be so polite." The Brethren scattered that night, their local chapter dissolved in disgrace. The victory was sweet. At the celebration back at the compound, Leo stood on a picnic table. He had something to say. He signed slowly for everyone to see, "My family is loud, my family is strong, my family is home, thank you for my noise." The cheers shook the rafters. Later, Marcus found Stella cleaning her scraped knuckles from the car incident. He took her hands in his. "You saved him." "He's my boy too," she said simply. He kissed her then, a deep, sure kiss that had been years in the making. It was a promise, sealed in the heat of battle and the quiet safety of home. Leo, peeking from the doorway, saw them and smiled. He felt their emotions, a warm, steady glow of love and relief. It was the best kind of noise. 5 years passed. The boy who had been tied to the railway tracks was now a young man of 15. Leo stood tall, though still quiet, his observant eyes missing nothing. He was a permanent fixture at the Iron Serpent's compound, but his world had expanded. He attended a mainstream high school with an aide who helped with communication. He got good grades, especially in shop class and physics. His gift, the emotional sensitivity that remained, was a finely tuned instrument. He couldn't read minds, but he could feel the shift in a room's mood like a change in barometric pressure. It made him a formidable chess player and a trusted confidant for the younger club kids who sometimes struggled with the tough environment. Marcus and Stella were now a solid unit. They had married in a simple ceremony at the compound, with Leo as the best man. Their home was a small house on the compound grounds, always open, always warm. Stella ran a proper clinic out of a renovated garage bay, serving not just the club, but anyone in the neighborhood who needed affordable care. Marcus, still the sergeant at arms, had become the club's chief strategist, his once pure ferocity now tempered into a sharp, calculating intelligence. The club itself had evolved. The war with the Silent Brethren had solidified their reputation. They were now the unshakable power in the region, their empire built on a mix of legitimate business, the thriving garage, Stella's clinic, a security company, and the less talked about ventures that funded it all. They were respected, even feared, but also known to have a code. They protected their own, and their own now included a surprising number of civilians from the community. The new threat emerged not from the shadows, but from a glass skyscraper. A corporate development firm, Apex Holdings, wanted to bulldoze the entire industrial district where the compound and several other long-standing businesses were located. They planned a massive urban renewal project, luxury apartments and chain stores. Their offers to buy were lowball. Their tactics were clean and ruthless, lobbying the city council, smearing the current businesses as blights, using obscure zoning laws to strangle them. James, Marcus, and the council saw the danger. This wasn't a fight they could win with muscle or even with clever intimidation. This was a war of lawyers, public opinion, and money. "We fight on their battlefield," James declared in a church meeting, "but we fight dirty clean." The club's strategy was multifaceted. Jessica, their brilliant lawyer, launched a series of legal challenges and appeals to slow down the process. The club's security company volunteered to patrol the neighborhood, driving down petty crime statistics and generating good press. Stella's clinic became a rallying point, highlighting the community services that would be lost. But Apex had deep pockets and a slick PR machine. They produced glossy brochures and commissioned polls. They subtly suggested that motorcycle clubs were a danger to family-friendly development. The city council was leaning their way. Leo watched it all. Feeling the frustration and worry emanating from his family, he had an idea. It was risky, and he needed Marcus's approval. One evening, he sat at the kitchen table with Marcus and Stella. He typed on his tablet, its text-to-speech voice filling the quiet room. "I can go to the city council hearing. I can testify." Marcus frowned. "Leo, it's too dangerous. They'll try to tear you apart, use you against the club." "I won't talk about the club. I'll talk about the clinic, about my school, about this place being my home. They see a biker gang. I can show them a community. I can feel what they're feeling. I can adjust." Stella looked at Marcus. "He's right. They see leather and tattoos. They don't see the people. They don't see him." After a long moment, Marcus nodded. "Okay, but Jessica preps you, and I'm in the back row." The day of the crucial council hearing arrived. The chamber was packed. Apex executives in sharp suits sat on one side. On the other, a coalition of business owners and residents, with the Iron Serpent sitting silently and respectfully in the back, out of their cuts, wearing button-down shirts. Leo was called. He walked to the podium, a slim teenager in neat clothes. He placed his tablet on the stand. The council members looked down, some curious, some dismissive. He typed, the robotic voice spoke, but his own intense, earnest eyes held the council's gaze. "My name is Leo. I live here. Stella's clinic saved my friend's little sister when she had an asthma attack and had no insurance. Paul's garage gives free auto repair classes to teenagers so they can get jobs. The security patrols mean my friend's grandmother isn't scared to walk to the store." He paused, his fingers flying. "Apex talks about building a community. We already are one. You want to build on top of us? Please don't." He could feel the emotional shift in the room. The dismissive council members were now uncomfortable. The sympathetic ones were bolstered. An Apex lawyer stood for cross-examination, a smug man ready to exploit a mute boy. "Leo, isn't it true you live with a known criminal motorcycle club? That your guardian has a violent record?" Leo didn't flinch, he typed. "My guardian saved me when I was alone. He taught me that strength is for protecting people. That's what our community does. What does Apex protect?" The lawyer, expecting fear or confusion, was thrown off. That's not relevant." "It is to me," the tablet voice stated flatly. The hearing didn't end in a victory that day, but it changed the narrative. Local news ran stories, "Mute teen defends his neighborhood." The human face of the struggle was no longer the intimidating bikers. It was a brave, articulate boy and a nurse's clinic. Apex, frustrated, made a mistake. They hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on Leo, to discredit him. The investigator found Leo's school, tried to bully his classmates into saying he was violent, strange, a cult member himself. Leo felt the malicious intent coming. He told Marcus. Marcus didn't confront the investigator. He sent Jessica. She served the investigator and Apex with a lawsuit for harassment, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, with a list of witnesses ready to describe the intimidation tactics. Apex, facing a public relations disaster and a costly legal battle on multiple fronts, withdrew their offer. The district was saved. The victory party at the compound was epic. It felt like the roar that had broken the curse years before, but this time it was pure joy. Leo was hoisted onto Paul's shoulders. "The kid's a secret weapon," Paul boomed. He outlawyered the lawyers. Later, as fireworks lit up the sky over the garage, Marcus put an arm around Leo's shoulders. "I'm proud of you. You didn't just fight for us, you led us." Leo smiled and signed, "We did it together." As Leo neared 16, he began to think about his future. He spent more time in the garage with Paul, not just observing but working. He had a natural, intuitive understanding of mechanics. He could feel a machine's problem, a misalignment, a friction point, almost before he saw it. He started building his own motorcycle from scrap parts, a painstaking project that became his pride. He also grew closer to a girl named Chloe, the daughter of a club member who worked as a mechanic at the garage. She was fierce, funny, and never treated his silence as a handicap. Their chemistry was a sweet, slow thing, shared smiles over engine parts, her teaching him to text faster, the electric feel of their hands brushing. Marcus watched with a mixture of pride and amused anxiety. The final test of Leo's place in the Empire came from within. A young, ambitious serpent named Dex grew jealous. He saw Leo, an outsider by blood, getting respect, getting the attention of the leadership, even building his own bike in the sacred garage. He started spreading whispers. Leo was a spy for the cops. His gift was a lie. He was making the club soft. The whispers found fertile ground with a few older members who missed the simpler, more violent days. A tension began to simmer. Leo felt it. The undercurrent of resentment was a cold trickle in his emotional senses. He told Marcus. "We could squash it," Marcus said, his eyes dark. "Call Dex out, end it." Leo shook his head. He typed, "That would prove his point, that I need you to fight my battles. I have to earn my place, not just be given it." The opportunity came during the club's annual charity ride, a massive event that raised money for children's hospitals. It was a point of pride, a show of their legitimate face. This year, the route was long and complex, crossing state lines. The lead navigator was Dex. The night before the ride, Leo was in the garage, putting the final touches on his custom-built bike. Dex came in, sneering. "Think you're gonna ride that piece of junk tomorrow? It'll fall apart before the first mile." Leo just looked at him, then went back to tightening a bolt. He could feel Dex's jealousy, hot and sour. The next morning, hundreds of bikes gathered. Leo was on his handmade motorcycle, lined up with the others. Marcus was leading. Dex, as navigator, was near the front. The ride began. 20 miles in, as they entered a winding mountain pass, disaster struck. Dex, distracted by his own anger, misread the route sheet. He led a large part of the pack down a narrow, poorly maintained service road that ended in a washed-out bridge. Bikes skidded to a halt at the precipice, confusion turning to anger. They were stuck, blocking the road, the charity ride in chaos. Dex was frantically trying to reroute, but the maps were unreliable. Leo nudged his bike forward. He had studied the routes for weeks, fascinated by the geography. He could feel the group's panic, a swirling storm of frustration. He caught Marcus's eye and signed rapidly. Marcus nodded, then bellowed, "Quiet, Leo has the way." All eyes turned to the silent teenager. Leo pointed back the way they came, then made a series of precise turns with his hands, outlining an alternative route using back roads he remembered from his maps. He typed on his phone, the text shown to the road captains, 7 miles back, left on Creek Road, follows river to rejoin Route 12. Pavement is good, adds 15 minutes. It was a gamble, but they had no better option. The pack reversed, following Leo's directions. He led them, his custom bike purring smoothly. The route was perfect. They rejoined the main highway with minimal delay. The charity ride was saved. That night at the rally point, the story had spread. Dex was humiliated. James called a spontaneous vote in the middle of the field, under the stars. "Leo Kane," James shouted. "He saved this ride. He saved our face. He has the heart of a serpent," all in favor of making him a full prospect. The roar of approval was deafening. Even the grumbling old-timers voted yes. Dex, shamed, voted yes too. Leo was given a prospect's cut, a plain leather vest. It was the first step. His journey to full membership would be long and hard, but the path was now open. Later, Marcus found him looking at the vest in his room. He signed, "Your father would be so proud." Leo looked up. He signed back carefully, a new sign he'd been practicing, "My father is." Marcus pulled him into a hug, the tough biker not even trying to hide his tears. The Iron Serpents hadn't given up their empire. They had transformed it, and at its heart was no longer just strength or loyalty, but a quiet, observant intelligence. A boy who had absorbed a curse meant to destroy them had in the end given them their greatest strength, a future. And as Leo looked out at the compound, at his family, at the girl smiling at him from across the fire, he knew the whispers were gone for good, replaced by the rich, complex, beautiful noise of a life fully lived. Thank you for watching. Could a child's simple act of bravery change the fate of an entire empire? What kind of debt can silence and thunder repay?